Good morning, Pat Gregory here from Woodwork for Women, and I'd like to show you how to build a bench hook. So what is a bench hook? A bench hook is a jig, and a jig is something that you either make or is manufactured that holds something while you do something to it. It is very broad, and your first jig that you will need in your workshop is a bench hook. Because the fibres of wood are very delicate, as you come through with your saw on the other side of the wood, they can splinter and spoil your cut. Having a bench hook, which is sacrificial and something you can cut into, it means that you can cut through the wood and actually into your bench hook so that those fibres become nice and neat so they don't tear out at the back. Please don't use glue. The reason why is because this little bench hook is going to last you many, many years, and as it wears out, because it's a sacrificial bit, we can change where this is. Cut this and move it over. We can move it around here, here, so you can get 5 years just out of one side before you even turn to the other side. So please don't glue it. Just a couple of nails will do, and then you can lever them up if you need to change it. Use your bench hook is that you hook it around your bench with this little part underneath, place your wood on the top, and have a little piece of wood that's the same thickness as your bench hook to steady that whole thing, and then you're ready to go. So a bench hook is really traditional. It's something that's been around for eons and something you can easily make yourself. You don't really need it a lot in carpentry, but when you're trying to do joinery with really beautiful joints, the bench hook is your friend. So enjoy making your very own bench hook. The bench hook is your first jig that will aid you in sawing. To do this, you might need a bench hook to make a bench hook. It's a bit like when you want to buy a car and you haven't got a car to go and get a car. Or if you've lost your glasses and you need your glasses to find your glasses. No, it's all a bit like that. So the materials that you're going to need is some wood to make your bench hook with. And you're going to need some radiata pine. I went down to Mitre 10 this morning, was able to buy that little piece of 1200 190 by 18 mil thick pine to make the bench hook. And we can use the rest of it for another project. We'll need some little battens on your bench hook, front and back, and that will be a piece of 42 by 19. So the tools that you're going to need to make your bench hook are first your measuring tools. You might have a tape measure, but I've got a long steel rule here because they're a little bit more accurate. A tri-square, and you'll need something to hold your wood, and we'll talk about these, some clamps and a saw, a tenon saw, and a hammer, and you might have one of those in your shed or in your toolkit. So there's not a lot to buy, and then of course we'll need some nails to put the whole thing together. So you have your wood ready. It's only a short piece, which is really comfortable to be able to cut up. We're going to measure on the wood with a long steel rule, and you can get these at Bunnings for about, I think $10 or not very much. And you'll need a pencil. A 2B pencil is really good, a soft leaded pencil, and it's 190 wide, and we're going to make it 250 long. So make a mark where that 250 is. Make it nice and dark so you can see it. And then with your square, you can square through that. Put your pencil on the mark and move your square up to it, and with your hands keeping it secure, square all the way through the line to the other side. And then while you're there, come down the front, make sure you match up with that line, and do the same at the back. I've got 3 lines on there now, and that'll give me a guide for my saw, something to eye as I go along. F clamp, G clamp. Irwin quick grip clamp. These are about $38, I think. I'm just using a cheap little Supercraft saw from my Mitre 10 hardware shop, $20 or so. It's got really sharp teeth on it, and I'm going to use it in my right hand because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, you will do all of this in the opposite way. The first thing I'm going to do is use a pistol grip. Left hand extended on the wood, it's all secured, and now you are ready to saw. Left foot forward, right foot back, and if you can see this, my saw is right beside the line. It's what we call kissing the line, and my saw is at an angle. And I'm going to just pop my finger up there just to steady the saw while I very gently bring it backwards, right beside the line. If I dig in too hard, it will scoot around all over the place. So the secret is to be really gentle and see if it will go forward. I also want to keep my saw upright at 90 degrees. And remember to keep that pistol grip. That's really vital. You can check how you're going by looking down at this line here to make sure you're not veering off. If you're starting to slope out, then you know your wrist is rotating. If you're going the other way, then you know your wrist is rotating that way. So I'm starting to drift a little, so I'm going to just reshuffle that a little bit and go back to my position again. Don't forget to blow away the sawdust, because that way you can see where you're going and you're watching where that new cut is being created. That's where you're looking the whole time. I'm not sawing really hard. I'm not pushing really hard with my shoulder. I'm just pushing and pulling the saw in the groove that it's made. That's all I'm doing. That'll help you to prevent you from tensing up and getting all anxious about it. It's not, you don't have to be strong. Now come and have a look. On this side, I've almost reached the other side, and I'm about to follow my line down the other side of that. So my saw is starting to become horizontal. So it's not tipped up. I need to now trace and follow this line. Take it a little easier now. And gentle. Just those last few strokes go really gentle, because these fibers underneath the weight of this is going to want to break it off, and we want to support that just very lightly though, so that you're not jamming the wood against your saw. You'll also hear the pitch of the cut change. You'll listen to the saw. Because now it's starting to go, and this is the place where it could split. Gentle, light touches. A little bit of jamming there. I'm just pushing too hard. Gentle, light, and one last one. There we go. So that's probably the best you can do by hanging it out over the edge. But once you've built your bench hook, you won't need to worry about that anymore, because you'll have a lovely bench hook to lean it against and actually go into. So that's the first part. Well done. So now you're ready to cut the little pieces that go across here, and they're the pieces that you're going to hang on to. We just call them battens. And this one hooks around the bench, and this one you hang on to. If you're right-handed, you will place the gap on your right. If you're left-handed, you'll put the gap on your left. But if you have people in your family who also want a saw and they're left-handed and you're right-handed, you can do both. So whatever you like. I'm going to put mine over to the right because I'm right-handed. I've measured it at 150. That's the length of my little batten, and I square that across, line up and down there and here, because that will help you to saw straight. Okay, because you're right-handed, we want the waist on your right. Clamp it with your clamp. Make sure it's really secure and you're not having to worry about it. Again, this is not what we usually do in joinery, which is hang out the piece over the edge. We always use a bench hook, and that's what we're doing. We're making a bench hook. Start with your saw right against the cut. Pull back really gently. When you reach the other side, you can go all the way down horizontally. This hand is barely doing anything. Now, gentle. That was a great example of the sound, how it changes, so you know to go steady so you don't get lots of tear out on the bottom. Now, if your cut is less than perfect, don't fret about that, because chances are the manufactured edge that you've just come from is. So when you attach your piece to your bench hook, you can put the manufactured edge up here where you'll be using it. But if yours is a star cut, then you can happily use your cut up that end if it is square. Now that you've finished one, you can go ahead and cut the other one. Measure at 150 and cut it. Some people say to me, Pat, why can't I just put one on top of the other and make a mark and square that across? And I tell them that in joinery we're trying to be so accurate that if you do that, you will, when you cut it, you will be a whole pencil line longer than this original piece. So we measure and cut and measure and cut. Just a little tip. So now we're going to attach the battens to the bench hook, and we'll need some nails. We'll need some bullet head nails that are 30 mil long. When you're choosing a nail, the rule is that you usually nail thin to thick. They're both the same in this case, so we're not too worried. I want to go into my piece of wood at least halfway. I'm going to use a lightweight hammer. This is not a builder's hammer. This is an old antique hammer that I got at a market for $15, and it's really sweet. It's beautifully balanced, and I'm going to put my nails in with that. Now, I don't want to have my nails too close to the end, or otherwise it will split. You can start your nail on a solid surface, and we're going to go straight in. We're not going to angle them. But if I did angle them a little bit, they would hold on that little bit better, but they don't look as nice on the top. So we're just going to go straight in. I'm going to nail them so that it almost peeps through the bottom here. And I'm going to make sure the head of this hits this dead flat. If it's at an angle, it'll sound different. Just so they're just coming through, and that's all. Then you can place them on here. Now I recommend you clamp it. I know you're all in a hurry and it's always busy, but if you clamp it, you'll be so glad you did, because that'll be when it will move. And the other reason to use a clamp is because when that nail hits the other piece, it will push it away. So having the clamp there brings them really tightly together, and you don't end up with that little gap between the two pieces, which is really infuriating. Ready to nail on the opposite one on the opposite side. Make sure that it's exactly in the same plane. It's very easy to turn it over and do it from the wrong side.